So you may have noticed that there is a new painting when you walk through the FBC foyer. It's this lovely one behind me. And maybe you thought, well, why on earth is this painting here? Well, I kind of wanted to explain some of the story behind this because there's some significance to it, which is pretty cool. So I'm here with my friend Piper Talladay. Some of you may know her, especially if you are a student in the youth ministry, because Piper, along with her husband Dustin, are part of our amazing youth leader team. And if you back up like, I don't know, a year ago, 18 months ago, something like that, Dustin and Piper had taken the Discovering My Ministry class that I teach here at FBC, which is to help people know kind of how to use their gifts within our body and how God has gifted them and shaped their hearts for service. And so it's kind of the class helps them connect, okay, who am I and how has God made me versus how can I now unleash my gifts here at FBC or in the community or whatever. So Dustin and Piper took the class. They came over to our house. We're talking to them about ways to serve, and Piper was saying how she would love to serve in any way. She could do, filing in the office, all this stuff. And over the course of our conversation, I found out she's actually professionally a painter, and she's had all sorts of training. Maybe you can talk about some of that later. But I looked at her website and saw these amazing portraits that she does of like horses and stuff. So of course my first thought was like, oh my goodness, I wonder if Piper would paint a picture of Randy Brenice riding a horse on the beach for FBC. And then my second thought was a little better, which is like, wow, maybe I'll just ask her if she would consider making some art for our church. And because again, we love to connect, people with their unique gifts and how to serve in various ways here. So when I talked to her about that, she basically said, okay, and she'll think about it. So Piper, I'm wondering, from that process, from when I first asked, would you consider painting something as a gift to our church, how did you arrive at this particular painting here?
Yeah. So we had talked about creating something for FBC, and we'd kind of played around with, during that time we were doing the series on the Psalms. Mm-hmm. And I remember you had talked in one of your messages about, I think we were on one of the Psalms that really is kind of descriptive of God's creation.
Yeah.
And you had talked and I think showed a picture of like you went on hunting trips, standing on top of a mountain and just like the splendor and the glory of God. And we kind of experienced that through the Psalms, and the Psalms are art, they're poetry. So just kind of talking about that and going through that series really got me interested in, well, how can we express a psalm through painting? And one of the things that I landed on was a landscape, because we've all gotten that feeling where we are in nature, just kind of overwhelmed by just splendor and just the glory of creation. And so in my mind, I thought it would be really beautiful to pair a psalm with a landscape. So we kind of talked to the elder board, and I brought some little paintings, little kind of color studies, and had them matched with psalms, and we talked about it. And we landed on this photograph, which is of the Tatoosh Range in Rainier. And this was what we decided to create as a painting for the church.
Yeah, and that's, I remember us having these conversations, and obviously it resonates with me being a Pacific Northwest person. I love that it's part of the Pacific Northwest here that is, God's creation that we can go and enjoy. So I think would you mind reading the particular, like some of the verses that inspired you with the thought process here?
Sure. So the whole painting was inspired by Psalm 104, and I'll just read some excerpts from that. Bless the Lord, O my soul. O Lord my God, you are very great. You are clothed with splendor and majesty, covering yourself with light as a garment, stretching out the heavens like a tent. He lays the beams of his chambers on the water. He makes the clouds his chariot. He rides on the wings of the wind. He makes his messengers winds, his ministers a flaming fire. He set the earth on its foundations so that it should never be moved. You covered it with deep as with a garment. The waters stood above the mountains. At your rebuke they fled. At the sound of your thunder they took flight. The mountains rose, the valleys sank down to the place that you appointed for them. You set a boundary that they may not pass, so that they might not cover again the earth. You make springs gush forth in the valleys. They flow between the hills. They give drink to every beast of the field. The The wild donkeys quench their thirst. Beside them the birds of the heavens dwell. They sing among the branches. From your lofty abode you water the mountains. The earth is satisfied with the fruit of your work. You cause the grass to grow for the livestock, and plants for man to cultivate, that he might bring forth food from the earth, and wine to gladden the heart of man, oil to make his face shine, and bread to strengthen man's heart. The trees of the Lord are watered abundantly, the cedars of Lebanon that he planted. In them the birds build their nests, the stork has her home in the fir trees. The high mountains are for the wild goats, the rocks are a refuge for the rock badgers. He made the moon to mark their seasons, the sun knows its time for setting. You make darkness, and it is night, when all the beasts creep out of the forest. The young lions roar for their prey, seeking their food from God. When the sun rises, they steal away and lie down in their dens. Man goes out to his work and to his labor until the evening. O Lord, how manifold are your works! In wisdom you have made them all. The earth is full of your creatures. Here is the sea, great and wide, which teems with creatures innumerable, living things both small and great. There go the ships and Leviathan, which you formed to play in it. These all look to you to give them their food in due season. When you give it to them, they gather it up. When you open your hand, they are filled with good things. When you hide your face away, they are dismayed. When you take away their breath, they die and return to dust. When you send forth your spirit, they are created, and you renew the face of the ground. May the glory of the Lord endure forever. May the Lord rejoice in his works, who looks on the earth and it trembles, who touches the mountains and they smoke. I will sing to the Lord as long as I live. I will sing praise to my God while I have being. May my meditation be pleasing to him, for I rejoice in the Lord. Let sinners be consumed from the earth, and let the wicked be no more. Bless the Lord, O my soul. Praise the Lord. So the whole psalm is really descriptive, and it has so many just beautiful pieces of language that speak about God's creation, from animals to the mountain to the sea. And so I thought it paired really, really nicely with this very creation-filled image.
From a volcanic mountain range.
Exactly.
Where, he looks on the earth and it trembles. He touches the mountains and they smoke. I think about that every time I see one of our great Pacific Northwest volcanoes. So that's awesome. So there's a couple reasons I was so pumped when Piper agreed to do this. One is because visual arts are powerful in evoking some of these things, which are very difficult to put into words. The grandeur of the Lord and his power in creation. But you look at a painting depicting it and you get a sense of that. So my hope is, we walk through the foyer kind of preparing our hearts for worship. I hope the painting can serve some of that purpose. But I'm also excited because just the arts kind of in general and the visual arts specifically are something that within kind of our specific stream of Christian expression are not as emphasized maybe as they have been at other periods in church history and other places. So I'm just jazzed. There's the famous stories of we Protestants taking over churches in the Reformation and stripping them of all the art, because we're word-centered, not image-centered, which is great. We're Fellowship Bible Church. It's our middle name. But at the same time, the gifts of creativity that God has given people and the gift of artistic expression is something we definitely want to give people an avenue to do that. So I was just really pumped up that you found a way to bless our church with your gifts.
Yeah, I was really excited to do that. And yeah, the church and art have such a long history, and we're created beings. And so we create things, and art is like music, like written word. It's all forms of art. So I was really excited to create this for the church, and to create something that can prepare our hearts for worship, just like when we stand on top of a mountain and are just in awe of God's creation. Maybe this can do a little bit of that in preparing our hearts for worship, in opening conversations about church and the arts, and making people feel at home. I mean, we as Washingtonians recognize mountains. We see them every sunny day. And so if someone might come to church and see that and feel just a little bit more at home, where their hearts could be opened to hearing the gospel, then it's done its work.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Art can be one of those real strategic ways to do so much of what Bruce has been talking in the mission class recently, of kind of building that platform.
Definitely.
I'm excited about that, and excited about looking at this painting. Make sure you go to the foyer and check it out. You can stand there like you're at an art gallery, but with a donut and your latte, and sip at it and enjoy. And Piper's here. If you have more questions for her, I'm sure she'd be happy to answer some of your questions about where this painting came about.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and thanks, Nate, for the opportunity. It's been really fun to kind of create this. I think you were kind of the champion behind it, so I appreciate that.
Fantastic. Thank you.